Alright, we're back here with the leagues. So this is our first match in our 5 Explorer event. We get the roll, so we go first. This gameplay is going to be at ×2 here. We keep an early leyline binding and growth spiral. Opponent drops a black into Fortsies, so it's clearly Raktos or Dimir control. After some consideration, they take our growth spiral. We top deck a Fable, which is fantastic for us. We play another Trial. They get the blood type, so it's clearly Raktos. So we decide, let's get the Fable down because it's double things they have to remove, they want to get rid of. Our opponent takes a while to think, then eventually uses a Stomp on the Fable. We top deck an Edgar, which is perfect for us, so we discard a land to just draw some more action. We crack the Fabled Passage to fix our mana. And we drop an Edgar because he's pretty much unkillable with Raktos, unless they have main board Artifact Hate. Our opponent clearly never seen the card before, so they take a long time considering. Eventually they play their Fable of the Mirror Breaker and pass the turn. We flip our Fable, shocking the Hallowed Fountain. Get rid of the Fable, we don't want them looting and gaining card advantage, and then we drop a Wandering Mind here. Finds us a Kaito. Choose to hold back Edgar here. Basically we want a roadblock for them to try and remove. They cast another Fable to get a token down. Then sacrifice their Blood Tithe to kill our mirror. We get a Tyrant Scorn here, so first things first, let's play Kaito. Draw a card. Go to combat with Wandering Mind. Bounce in with Kaito for a second activation. Now we'll make it so a Fable token can't attack. Then we'll Leyline Binding the Fable to again deny them the Faithless Looting effect. Our opponent considers their options. They have all the mana in the world. They could activate the Hive Tyrant here and go round. They instead decide to destroy Edgar, flipping him over. Then put the damage on Kaito here. Then Stomp to kill Kaito. We start getting our Lifelinkers, we top deck our Niv, so we hit our reload. They got one card in hand and we reload up to 4 more cards, so we go to a full 7. And our opponent just concedes because we've outvalued them. Moving into sideboard, it's standard Raktos practice. Except my machine decides to freeze up here. Not my machine, sorry, my client. As you can see, no idea why, it was just having a tiz this day. This is at ×2 speed, by the way. We bring in our Fortsies, we take out a Celestus, a Drown in the Lock, and we just go with it like that. Probably should have been in portable holes in hindsight, but you know, I was thrown off by the sudden collapsing of the client. Opponent seems to also be considering here. One thing I did notice playing this league is a lot of these plays were slow, but I can accept that because, well, we're playing for essentially, we've paid to be in the event, so we're taking our time. Alright, our opponent goes first here. We keep a solid hand here, but it is pretty susceptible to interaction, but we don't see it, and we top deck a land, which, you know, we never didn't have it. Blood Tithe on 2. Choose to pass here, holding up both interaction of the Tyrant Scorn. Yep, we just want to take that out at the beginning of combat. We want to keep our life total high and trade 1 for 1. They drop their Fable, so we drop ours and we exile again. Again, we just want to deny them the looting. We'll take 2 off the token here. They've got all the mana in the world. They play Kalitas, which is clearly an answer to our Edgar. Fortunately though, we top deck our Supreme Verdict, so, you know, again, better lucky than good. I double check our lands to make sure we can cast our Verdict and blow up the world. We also sort it now because if they Fortsies, they got a choice between Edgar or Niv. And ultimately, we got to see what the issue is. They stomp and deploy the Bone Crusher. We hit our 5th land. I choose to deploy Edgar here. I want to bait out any removal they might have, which nearly comes back to bite us as our opponent turns out to have Go Blank. Luckily we had just enough cards to hold on to the Niv Mizzet. Fortunately though, our opponent doesn't want to trade for the Edgar here because, well, it's clearly in our favour. We hit another land here, so we drop our Niv for the reload. Hit 2 cards.
Reload!
Drop our land. Choose to get aggressive here and go in. I want to put pressure on them, which in hindsight is a bit ridiculous. What I'm thinking they'll do is swing with Bone Crusher, then use Blood Tithe to kill Niv. Or they might have removal in hand for Niv, so they shrink it with Blood Tithe Harvester. And then stomp it with the Bone Crusher Giant. They turn the Mutavault into a creature to get some damage in. We hit a good slew of lands here, so I choose to hold back our Edgar here. They have 1 card in hand which they loot away as a land. Our opponent plays Liliana of the Veil. So they force us to sack Edgar, which is alright because Edgar still triggers. When they go to combat and attack, we use Tyrant Scorn to take 2 off the Bone Crusher. Again, 2 is better than 8, and at this point they can't activate the Mutavault, or they don't hold the priority correctly to do it. They deploy another Bone Crusher, so we Growth Spiral the end step, and we hit our 2nd in Mizzet, which is beyond perfect for us here. We go up to 5 cards. Opponent draws up to 1. They loot away a land. And ultimately concede. So we go 1 up in the league. Match number 2. We got a Verex. We got red sleeve, so this considers to be aggro. So naturally, I keep a very dicey hand here. I get rid of our basic because we have a ton of ways to find basic, and we have black already covered. Grual vehicles, it looks like, with an Elvish Mystic on turn 1. Turn 2 into Love Struck Beast. Fortunately, with the way our mana is, we can't Tyrant Scorn it, so we've got to take the hit here. Our opponent gets in for 6. Second main, they drop a 2nd Love Struck Beast. We hit a Supreme Verdict here, which is huge. So what I'm going to do is drop the Isolated Chapel. Wait till they go to combat, and then before they try to declare attackers, kill the Elvish Mystic. I have to hope here they don't have a Collected Company to get another 1/1 in. They tap mana, which scares me, but ultimately it passes. So now Lovestruck Beast can't attack because they don't control a 1/1. So they let the mana fizzle, go to their 2nd main phase, deploy 2 mana dorks to protect from potential another removal, but play directly into our board wipe here. So ultimately, to secure this, we need to get a 2nd white for the double white for Supreme Verdict, and we wipe the board. Our opponent also missed their 4th land drop, which is pretty huge for us here. But it also means that they have action in hand that we should be scared of. They hold priority in their upkeep and then eventually concede. More board wipes in. We bring in Edgar to, not Edgar, we bring in Omnath to stabilize. Aside from that, I think we take out the Celestus and we just see how things go here. Alright, game 2, we mulligan down. We do find 2 lands, ultimately. Sorry, we go down to 5, we have to put 2 back. Dicey decision here, but I choose to keep the Growth Spiral. In hindsight, this comes back to bite me because our opponent has the turn 1 Mystic into the turn 2 Lovestruck Beast. So I'm holding on here, hoping that I can draw enough to get removal down. Ultimately though, since I don't have the correct combination of triumphs here, I'm in trouble. So, our opponent plays now Reckless Stormseeker, swings in for 9, so we are lethal here, and we cannot cast our Supreme Verdict. Best hope is drop the Fable and try to block. But unfortunately, our opponent had the nuts because they literally just have this into Embercleave to win the game. Alright, so to save time, go to game 3. And the memories of this match now come back to me. I take out the Kaito and add in a veto to just hold up against the potential Embercleave. But ultimately we just want to keep the board clear. So we keep double removal spell and plenty of lands that cover all colours here. Our opponent has to mulligan. And this is sadly the first instance I remember finding a scummy little roper here. So they drop their card, we pass, we have Vanishing Verse or Doran's Veto, depending on what they do that's scary. We choose to just take one here. We have an Edgar for later. Choose to shock in another land here, just holding up a Colligan's Command, Vanishing Verse or Veto. It all just depends on what they do. And our opponent starts roping. So my guess is they don't have a great hand here. They drop a land. I'm sorry, this isn't where they rope. They start roping, I think, after this. They play the Reckless Stormweaver. It comes into combat. I immediately, before we go to the trigger, just exile it. I'm kind of just sending the signal to my opponent that I basically have an answer to everything you could have here. And this is where the roping starts. I'm accusing of roping because there's no plays that this guy can make, because there's no 0 mana spells in this deck, there's no 0 mana things in this format. He's just holding priority being a swear word. So we shock in an Edgar here to protect, hoping our opponent will deploy something big. They drop a Mutavault. Play their Lovestruck Beast. Pass the turn, we draw a second Edgar here. So what I choose to do is just leave this open. So we basically have whatever we need here. Day flips to night. Opponent has 4 mana and plays an Azeka's Chariot. So we wait. Opponent holds priority. Literally, the only thing they could do here is crew. So either they are just hoping that I'm going to concede, or they're just going to wait it out. Yes, I did have client trouble earlier, but I'm not going to accuse this of being client trouble here because, yep, there goes the timeout 1. So what the plays we do from here is we can Colligan's Command, take out the 1/1 so they can't attack, destroy the Chariot. We then have a Assassin's Trophy to answer anything they do. We also have a veto if they try anything scary. See, look, they're back. So in the end step, we just go with the Destroy Artifact to kill the Citizen. We draw a Supreme Verdict, but unfortunately we can't cast it because we don't have double white. So pass the turn back to our opponent, who then ropes us out for eternity. They're clearly just waiting for the old quit here, but unfortunately we won't give it to them. We're in an actual event here, and I refuse. And here's the burn, and they concede. They don't even do it out. Fortunately, they ask me if I have fun, so I say no because our opponent deliberately slow played to try and get us to quit. Match 3 here, we have a solid 2-drop. If we can draw a third land, it'll be great. But we also have a way to tutor a third land if we don't have that much luck. Our opponent drops a Plains into a Recruitment Officer, so this is mono white humans. We drop the Path to the World tree. Pick up blue, which is our one missing colour, to get full domain. Hopeful Initiative comes down. Here comes the Dauntless Bodyguard. We take 2. Considering my options here, ultimately choose to drop Fable of the Mirror Breaker. My logic is I should just be able to chump block anything they play here. And if they get Hopeful Initiate up enough to kill Fable, I'll be okay with that. Valia's Lieutenant comes down and blows us away here. I choose to block the Dauntless to get rid of the indestructible protection. We go down to 10. We get to discard 2 cards here, so Colligan's is a bit too slow now. I shock down to 8 and play Edgar. Basically, we just gotta hope we don't get hit with the classification. They do get ossification here. That puts us down to 1. Alright, so we can survive this, so check this play. They go to combat, play a Luminarch Aspirant, so they can't activate Hopeful Initiate now. So, they go to combat and attack. They get training. First things first, Leyline Binding, take out their ossification, get back our Edgar. Then, Vanishing Verse, take out the Hopeful Initiate. We can have this and this trade, but Edgar will flip and we still have removal. Now I'm terrified of a potential Brave the Elements here, so I'm not going to run out Niv and leave us dead to our opponent having a way to interact. Ultimately I drop a Celestis because if we can get Night and Day going, we can gain life to stabilize. Our opponents only hit 2 lands, so they clearly have a lot of stuff in hand. They go for Hopeful Initiate and another Recruitment Officer. I go for the removal on that. Make a second blocker here. Again, holding up mana because I just want to make sure that I'm not going to get blown out by a Brave the Elements. Our opponent finds their 3rd land and drops a Avadeline, but we have the Leyline Binding to deal with that. Opponent goes to combat, so I choose to double trade here. Get some life back and clear their board, keep us as safe as possible. Edgar flips back over. We're now clear to drop a Niv because I don't think Mono White Humans runs a haster.
Reload!
We get a Clarion for lifelink, a Kaito to bounce stuff, and Edgar's there to provide pressure. Brutal Cathar comes on the field, takes out Niv. They play a Skrev and concede. Yes, that Brutal Cathar could have blown us out earlier. So more board wipes, portable holes, and we take out 1 Drown in the Lock and a couple of Assassin's Trophies because we don't want them to thin out their deck because they run a very low land count. That's my personal opinion. They don't have any non-land permanents I'm too worried about apart from creatures, and we have plenty of ways to deal with creatures. I choose to keep a controversial hand here. We could get completely blown out if our opponent goes into aggro mode like that Green Vehicles did. Alright, so we play tap land. They run out of Thalia, which was something I completely forgot about here, so we are in for it here. We take 2. They play Hopeful Initiate, Thalia's Lieutenant to pump the board. We play a Path to the World Tree here. Pick up a land here so we can drop an Edgar to maybe start trading. But they have the second Thalia's Lieutenant here, so we are just basically dead here. Our one hope is top deck a Clarion, but we don't. Even if we drop Edgar, we can't survive this, so we just pass into game 3. We bring back in the Assassin's Trophies and take out the Kaitos here. Then we bring in an Edgar, and I drop a Celestis. The problem with the Celestis is we have to cast 2 spells to trigger it, and we were holding up interaction to deal with their threats. I ultimately mulligan to find a more productive hand here. I get rid of, yes, so that's mana fixing, but we don't currently have that option. So I choose to play another tap land here, keep our life total healthy. They don't have a board. My guess is we're going to see a Thalia. Yep. So we just deploy a portable hole here, get rid of Thalia. Opponent drops their second Thalia, so we'll just Leyline Binding. We've got to keep their board down because basically if we can keep their third Thalia. So I choose now, I'm going to drop the Edgar here because they haven't hit their land drops, and the scariest thing they could do is a Thalia's Lieutenant here or a Luminarch Aspirant, which won't get lethal through. I attack with Edgar for funsies, then shock in and hit with a Solar Blaze. So that's 3 failures. Count them, ladies and gentlemen. Failure number 4. But we're pumping out lifelinkers here, so I choose to just find out what I can get. Get a Vanishing Verse, shock in, get failure off the field, and wait to see what our opponent does. Luminar Castrant goes up to a 2-2. Go to combat and hold back here. We want to trade if we can. We'll put Yorion into hand for later. Another activation of Wandering Mind will be helpful to find more removal. They try to Thalia's Lieutenant here, so I choose to exile the Luminarch in response. That just makes Thalia's Lieutenant a 1-1 for 2. Go into combat and attack with everything to gain life. They go down to 4. I choose to play Yorion here and blink the board to get more blockers set up and to get another trigger off the Wandering Mind, which finds us another way to exile their cards. They have an Ossification, but we just choose to Growth Spiral. We find a Supreme Verdict, they're just dead anyway here. We move on to match 4, 3-0. Right, this match the recording cut off and I'm going to play it at ×4 speed. So this was the nightmare matchup. So you see banned here, but I can assure you this is blue-white control. As you can see here, we're cycling sensors. So what happens against blue-white control decks with these decks is basically Leyline Bindings are used to take out their biggest threats, the same with Vanishing Verses with their big Planeswalkers, and all you gotta do is run spells into their counters. Everything in our deck in some way or form can score value or save us points, so we just want to see what we can get out of them. Also, the fun thing, not the fun thing, but the most frustrating thing about playing control here is that our opponent genuinely probably doesn't know what half our cards do because we're not playing a tier 1 meta deck. So as you see here, he's taking time to read every card we have, cycling his Shark Typhoons, getting in for 1. Ultimately what we're just going to do is hold lands here. Once we've got enough, we just start cycling, gaining advantage if we can. So this match lasted for 50 odd minutes, and I think the recording cut out at 10, which was right near the end, at 40 minutes. So this is ×4 here. You see me just grinding out with the Celestus to just keep going through our deck, finding threats and answers. They drop a Narset, we go for a counter here to burn another counter out of their hand. They absorb. Life total's not really an issue here because we're not an aggro deck in the traditional sense. In the end step, we Leyline Binding the Narset because we want to trigger the Celestus. We hit a Niv here, unfortunately they don't have counter magic. Reload! Find an Edgar and a Growth Spiral, which isn't perfect in this scenario. This deck is one of the ones that has ways to deal with it. They double their hand size with Seagate Restoration. Go down to 2. Hit him for 6 with Niv. Play a Path to the World Tree. Path is a surprise card because it can at least score you some oh, here you go. Wandering Emperor comes in, so since it tapped out, we'll exile that Shark Typhoon. We'll Leyline Binding the token so Edgar can get in and attack here. Now in case I have another Wandering Emperor, I choose to trigger Yorion here. I either want to force a board wipe or get them to play more removal out of their hand. They drop their third Shark Typhoon, go for a board wipe. We start hitting our Fables here, start drawing extra things, exile the Shark Typhoon. They have the third one, they've got a Teferi now, it's pretty much, I think, over here. They counter our last Vanishing Verse to try and deal with their thing here. I draw more cards, attack into Teferi, just got to keep his loyalty down. Play another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Teferi chooses to get rid of Edgar here, eventually, with the tick down. Because most, Teferi players don't realize he has a -3. But they have a second Teferi to plus up. Now they're going to use Fields of Ruin to force us to shuffle our deck to get rid of the Edgar. They're just trying to hold back here and block to keep their Teferi alive. We're trying to get another Kaito down here. We're trying to bait out counter spells to try and get them to deal with stuff here. Kaito comes down. I choose to draw a card here. Find a leyline binding, so we've got to be careful about how we push this. I want to get one thing through to get damage done, but while they're tapped out, I'm also going to remove their... Yeah, see, so that was my mistake. With that on the stack, I should have also got rid of the Wandering Emperor. But this is where our opponent makes the blunders. They ultimately go really hard in on Kaito and have their third Teferi. They get rid of our Wandering Mind, but we just find another one. We get back our Yorion, kill the Teferi. We play the Yorion. I blink the entire board here, and the ley lines that we use to get rid of tokens, we use to get rid of more tokens, just in case they have removal. So they currently have no big tokens. We have blockers. They start pumping their team. I ultimately trade for a lot here, go down to 6, draw a card. Ultimately don't find anything, but choose to attack in here to kill the Wandering Emperor. Go from day to night to get another Fable of the Mirror Breaker online. Opponent has us on free, but we are kind of slowly gaining life. We find our 4th Fable here. I choose to get rid of it. We attack in, hold back blockers. So we go up to 5 here. We go up to 6 with the day trigger. I choose to block because if they flash in an Emperor to pump it, we're just in trouble. They absorb here, so we cycle and we find a Niv, which is hilarious to me because they use their hard counter on a ramp spell. Reload! Opposed to a Niv Izzet. Now it's just a very close tightrope of keeping ourselves alive. We discard their last card, kill their Shark Typhoon. Basically, we just got to make sure that 5 power creature doesn't get through. But if they draw removal, we can Assassin's Trophy as required. We're tapped out here, so I just choose to make more mana. What I'm going to do is, in their end step, I'm going to do the Infinite Reflections trick. So they would have to draw now a way to remove our Niv Mizzet, which they do with the Teferi. However, since they only have 1 card in hand, I go for Tyrant Scorn to bounce the 5/5 so they can't hit lethal this turn. They have a veto to try and protect it, but we are holding the Assassin's Trophy. So we'll kill that before they draw a card. We go down to 5, and in the end step we make Infinite Reflections to swing through for lethal, thanks to the extra treasure we made. Yeah, control matchups, we just do everything here. We take out a lot of interaction, which comes back to bite us. Game 2, unfortunately, is not as close. They just have a hand of... Well, we get flooded, I believe. Our opponent just curves out with perfect counters all the way down. And there's no way for us to stabilize. Yeah, we had a bit of a slow start here. So our opponent has interaction into interaction. So we choose here to ramp, get a land up. We pass, our opponent plays this. We choose to drop a Fable. They veto that, which is fine. On their turn they have 5, so they go for an asset. I'm going to Mystical Dispute that. So they don't have card advantage here. We play a Path to the World Tree, get some lands. Play another Path to the World Tree, thin out our deck more. Basically now we just need some interaction. Our opponent cycles the Shark Typhoon for free. We leyline binding that token away. In the end step they Shark Typhoon for 4 and attack. We pop the the World Tree to find 2 cards. We attack in to see if they have anything. We try to drop Edgar. Gets countered. We go for the Vanishing Verse, which works. They make a free token. Attack us in. We draw a card. We Fort Seize. They have another veto. We play a Wandering Mind. They have an Absorb. And this is how this game goes. They then cycle another counterspell they were holding. And basically this is what happens now. They have not set finds, protection, and there's no way for us to kill this shark or resolve a creature to block. So ultimately we are just done for here. They also happen to have a March of the Worldly Light. They find a Teferi and it's over. Game 3 gets cut off here, but basically what happens is we just deploy a couple of spells, they counter the wrong spells, we resolve a Niv, and they instant concede out of frustration because we reload a near perfect 7. So fortunately the recording cut off here, so I don't know how far we got. But all in all, this was a 50+ minute match, I believe. Yeah. Wandering Mind finds another path. We just swing in. They make a 1/1 Shark Typhoon. In their end step, we just Vanishing Verse it. We attack in. Choose to drop a Fable the Mirror Breaker. They try for Wandering Emperor, we counter it. Oh yeah, they march, we play in the Izzet. Oh, we do have the full match here. Yeah, my word, I could have sworn the recording cut out. So we go 4-1 here. And now we come to our final game for a perfect second 5-0 in a row. Can we do it? You have to watch to find out. Start off with a Tabland. Opponent plays red and plays a Siren Stormtamer. So this is it tempo or mono blue tempo? Well, blue red tempo, Curious Obsession tempo. I choose Growth Spiral here to just put some cards on the board. We're not under a huge clock here. The main thing we got to be scared of is if they resolve one of their Curious Obsession. So with them tapped out, I choose to use the Leyline Binding to get rid of the Siren. They've only got 2 lands. We ourselves are also struggling for action here. They flash in a Trickster. They play a Curious Obsession on it. So they start hitting us for free and drawing a card. We start flooding out tremendously. They have a Make Disappear, so we go down, draw a card. Not much to talk about here, I'm afraid. They play a Brian Folk. We choose to Merfolk Trickster kill it if we can. We do get that resolved here. Opponent stomps us. Puts a good clock on our head here. We go down to 6. We just need to draw a threat here. We play Edgar, but they have Make Disappear with Casualty, if I remember the game correctly. Yep, so ultimately we were 1 mana short, which I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, yep, I could have paid for if I had shocked in the land there. Ultimately I just play a Path to World Tree, knowing I'm dead, but they ionize us to kill us. Yep. Not much to say about this. It's similar to the control matchup. We just bring in Disruption if we can get it. Ultimately we go down Kaitos, Celestus, and I think no, I do leave in the Verdict and an Edgar. I take out a Path to the World Tree because I got flooded down and drowned in the lock, and just see how that goes. Not the best, but at the end of this it was nearly 2 hours of playing and I was stressed out of my mind. I keep a controversial 7 here because I forget that this is not a Temple Garden and they have the Siren Tamer. So we really needed to untap and kill that on the turn. They got in an attack. We do have a Mystic Dispute to keep their board a bit further down. Play a land, play a second Siren, play a Curious Obsession, start drawing cards. Pass the turn here, play the land. I'm Vanishing versus Curious Obsession because The Siren Storm Tamers can counter if they target a creature or them, so just stopping them drawing cards here is way more important. Fortunately and annoyingly, our opponent, our auto tapper, decides that we don't need blue mana even though we're holding up a counter spell. In the end step here, Merfolk Trickster taps down the token. Brazen Borrower, choose to counter that so they don't have a flying 3/3. They find a second Curious Obsession here. I choose to discard, controversially, 2 spells here to draw 2 lands because I'm frustrated and angry here. Swing in. Ultimately we have 2 removal spells here to try and deal with stuff. So Tyrant Scorn, go to remove the Siren Storm Tamer. They sacrifice the counter. We then Assassin's Trophy here. They have a Wizard's Retort. That's basically it here. They get we don't draw anything good. They have. In layman's terms, we just need to survive. Let's see what we can draw here. We go down to 2, they draw a card. Play a land. Pass the turn here. What I'm going to do is just hold back because we're dead to basically any burn spell they could have here. But I'm also going to try and force them to attack in. We go up to 4. We have some more blockers. They find Chandra the Awakened Inferno. This is looking unfortunate for us. They choose to minus to get rid of everything on the board. Draw a card, find a land, cycle a land, cycle a land, find no answers, choose to concede. And that's the end of our run. So, unfortunate there in our final matchup. We got hit there, but we went 4-1 in all and we made profit. So we got 800 tickets. Thank you for watching.